and welcome to Newsfeed, your daily dose of what people are talking about online, from news stories to what's trending. Let's kick off our show in space, the final frontier. The truth, they say, is out there, and we might just be getting a step closer to it right here on Earth. That's because former military officials have made extraordinary claims at a U.S. congressional hearing. Under oath, they've sworn there's plenty of evidence of the existence of UAPs, also known as unidentified aerial phenomena. That's UFOs to you and me. Lara beams us up.
Most of us have wondered about the possibility of extraterrestrial life, what aliens might look like, if they will ever phone home, or come to destroy our planet. Sci-fi movies have fed our imaginations for decades with a diverse array of alien tales, from comedies to adrenaline-filled action flicks, and even spooky thrillers that send shivers down our spines. But it's time to beam up out of the realm of Hollywood and into the real world. The United States government is now treating UFOs and aliens with the utmost gravity. This week, 3 former military officials took the stage to testify in front of Congress about what they call unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs.
Parts of our government are aware of more about UAP than they let on, but excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden.
David Grush, a former U.S. intelligence official, revealed his role in leading the Defense Department's analysis of reported UAP sightings. And he acknowledged a top-secret Pentagon program dedicated to salvaging and reconstructing crashed UAPs over the decades.
Has the U.S. government become aware of actual evidence of extraterrestrial, otherwise unexplained forms of intelligence? And if so, when do you think this first occurred?
I like to use the term non-human. I don't like to denote origin. Keeps the aperture open, both scientifically. Right. Certainly, like I've discussed publicly previously, 1930s.
The Pentagon denies the existence of the program. Ryan Graves, a former Navy pilot, told the panel that military pilots do not feel adequately briefed on UAPs.
They are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena.
David Fravor, a former Navy commander, recalled an encounter that shook him to the core. He and his fellow military pilots witnessed a white, tic-tac-shaped object in 2004, defying the laws of physics.
As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute."
Fravor told the committee that the technology he and his team encountered defied logical explanation.
Do you believe UAPs pose a potential threat to our national security?
Yes, and here's why. The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had, and there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing.
The Pentagon recently began acknowledging that UAPs pose a threat to airspace, without explicitly acknowledging the existence of aliens. But what we do know is, in space, no one can hear you scream.
Singapore has executed its first woman in almost 20 years. Sari Dewi Jamani was hanged on Friday after 4 years on death row for trafficking just 30 grams of heroin. The 45-year-old is the second person to be hanged this week in Singapore, and the 15th since the government resumed executions in March last year after a 2-year hiatus during the pandemic. Singapore has some of the harshest drug laws worldwide, with the death penalty imposed on any offender found trafficking more than half a kilo of cannabis or 15 grams of heroin. Adam has reported extensively on this issue from the city-state. He tells us more from Sydney.
Prisoner executions are not uncommon in Singapore. Last year alone, 11 men were hanged by the state. But this week, there's been a renewed focus on the city-state's use of the death penalty because a woman has been executed, something that's very rare in Singapore. 45-year-old Sari Devi Jamani was sentenced to death in 2018. She was charged with possession of 30 grams of heroin for the purpose of trafficking. Human rights groups have been outraged by this case. This tweet is from the Capital Punishment Justice Project, reacting to the news of 2 executions this week. They said, horrifying news from Singapore. This would mark 15 executions for drug convictions since 30th of March 2022 and see the first woman executed in Singapore in almost 20 years. Last year, only Singapore, China, Iran and Saudi Arabia executed people for drug offences, according to Amnesty. We understand before this execution that there were 2 women on death row in Singapore. And given some of the outcry about this case because a woman has been executed, could it lead to any change of Singapore's stance on the death penalty? Well, here's one expert with her opinion.
The execution of women has often captured the imagination of people to support death penalty abolition. For example, in the UK, the execution of Ruth Ellis helped strengthen the abolition movement in the country. In the US, the recent execution of Lisa Montgomery caused public outcry when details about gender-based violence and bias that led to her death sentence were exposed.
For now, though, the executions keep coming. This is from the activist group, the Transformative Justice Collective. They understand that another execution notice has been delivered for a Singaporean Malay man who was a former delivery driver. For now, the Singapore government shows no signs of changing their stance on the death penalty. They claim that it's an effective deterrent against drug-related crimes and ensures the safety of Singapore citizens. So we can expect more executions and more of these stories.
Meta's overnight success, Threads, had its first major update this week. Meta took advantage of the ongoing chaos over at the once Bluebird site, Elon Musk's X, to release one of the most wanted features on the platform, a reverse chronological following feed. Aside from capitalizing on Twitter's failures, the update is meant to keep the platform's declining users on the app. Despite its buzzy launch, Threads experienced a massive drop in its daily active user count by 70% since the peak on July the 7th. Still, it's too early to call the app a flop, especially with Mark Zuckerberg betting so heavily on it. During a company meeting, the Meta CEO said the retention of users on Threads was better than expected, although not perfect. But the user count is expected to grow as more features like a desktop site, search functionality, and translations are introduced. That user count is going to become even more important as the company moves to monetize the site. Advertisers will be drawn to the platform when engagement increases, and Meta needs that. Despite its rosy forecast, Meta wasn't having a great time financially until recently. The tech giant reported its first ever quarterly revenue decline this time last year and has been trying to rebound ever since. Meta announced an 11% increase in year-over-year revenue on Wednesday, the first time it reached double digits since the end of 2021. This is partly because Zuckerberg's metaverse ventures haven't been as profitable as he'd hoped. Reality Labs, which developed the metaverse, cost the company $3.7 billion this year and a whopping $13.7 billion since 2022. Investors anticipate worse, though, as the public seems uninterested in the metaverse. Threads and Meta's family of apps could be the way to go. The United Nations is calling for a worldwide ban on smartphones. Okay, relax, it's just for in the classroom, not globally. Research shows phones cause distraction in class, risk pupil privacy, and can lead to cyberbullying. The 2023 Global Education Monitor report says only technology that supports learning has a place in school, but noted that less than 1 in 4 countries have laws or policies banning phones in schools. France introduced a national ban back in 2018. More recent adds are the Netherlands, Finland, Germany, Italy, and Greece. The UK education minister has recommended students have brick phones. Meanwhile, Turkmenistan and Bangladesh have banned smartphones outright, while India has a partial ban. Moving further east, and it's a disciplinary offense for students to bring their phones to school in Malaysia. China limits smartphone use to 30%. Australia now has a total ban, while in the United States, 7 states have joined banning devices this year. Others have had a ban in place since 2020. Even if the UN does get its way and there is a worldwide ban on smartphones in the classroom, don't imagine for a second those sneaky students won't find a way to smuggle their phones.
How students use their phones in class. The book cover. Under the table. the sleeve, the I don't care, the calculator cover, dropping stationery, inside the shirt, the one with no phone, inside the pencil case, the one with 2 phones.
London men are being urged to call out their mates' use of sexist language by saying, mate? London Mayor Sadiq Khan says London is currently facing an epidemic of violence against women and girls, and the violence starts with words. Comedian Romesh Ranganathan has thrown his support behind the campaign.
I think it's not good enough to be quiet.
If you're, I call it allyship.
Yeah, if you're silent, you are complicit.
All I'm asking you to do is, if you see some sort of behaviour like that, you don't have to be big about it. Just, you know, have a word. And if that word is just mate, then that's all good.
When you're in a group with your mates, tend to be blokes, just having a word with yourself first to give you the confidence, and then challenging your friend, your mate, can lead to them changing their behaviour.
I've been in situations where one of my friends has said something and I've not spoken up, and I've walked away from that going, well, I just didn't want to say anything. We've got to get to a point where that is not good enough, that I've done something wrong there, and I think that everybody needs to start thinking like that if somebody does something that is unacceptable, if you don't call it out, then in a way you're complicit.
I think we've got ourselves into a situation where somebody might be talking to a woman and they say something inappropriate and we don't call it out enough. So for example, you know, just going, mate, saying that is rank. Or mate, she doesn't want to talk to you anymore. Or mate, you need to move away from her. I think that's something we should be doing more of. And I am imploring you to, whenever you see anything like that, you throw them a mate and you let your friend know if they carry on behaving like that, they're not going to be your mate much longer, okay?
But while there are clearly good intentions behind the campaign, many have criticized its execution. Joan Smith, who is a journalist and author of the book Misogynies, questions how effective saying mate will be. She calls the initiative patronizing, totally inadequate, and a waste of public money. Kat makes a pertinent comparison. Imagine an anti-racism advert saying you could call out racism by just saying dude. That would be unthinkable. Whereas Jo thinks the mayor has managed to offend both women and men simultaneously. She reassured men that women do not think they are all misogynists. We don't tar you with the same brush. You are appreciated. Hashtag the good guys. While some women have been saying mate for a long time, especially those who are brilliant at chess.
Mate! It's a mate! It's a mate! Yes!
And that's a wrap from us. Find our latest shows on YouTube. The address is on your screen, and do subscribe to our channel. See you soon.